Hey, puzzle rush time. Hmm. Hmm. Give me a sip of the soda and then we'll get started. Hmm. I missed that word issue. That's okay. We gotta just keep learning. Hmm. Oh, I got it. Interesting. Okay. Give it one more shot, and then we'll start into our end game. The rest of our end game. Oh, the bishop covers there. Didn't see that. I don't know why I didn't see that. That's okay. Hey, as long as you're learning, that's the whole thing. Oh, I was gonna play here, after there, and then there. I had the mating pattern set up. I would have got 26. We'll keep that. I forgot about the discovery thing. See, if you come here, takes, discovery, you win a rook. So you're up in it. You're up a lot of material. This one's pretty cincher. This one right here. I just didn't get a chance to finish it. Take there. That's the move there, and that was at 1400. So great job on that. Let's do studies. Alright. Let's finish up the Magnus one. Bishop f6, bishop f5. I have to enlarge this. G5, bishop g4, bishop f4, bishop f5. Castle wins the bishop, and black can't reach the a corner anymore. So e6 check. bishop takes e6. H, g7, king takes e, king takes h, king d5, king g6, king c6, not c6, or c6, yes, king f5, king b5, exclaim at this point, because what you're hoping for your opponent to do is this. You're hoping they take, after they take here, try to come in, you actually shield the opponent away. If he tries that, you come in, and if he tries coming in via here, you just shield him away, and if they tries here, you come, and if he tries there, you come, if he tries here, you come, and there's no way to do it. So you have to have seen the sacrifice of the bishop. So we'll delete that. Okay, we'll do this Magnus Carlsen game. This is the one where we'll do another one. White to move. Let me make sure we have this. Yep. Yeah, we got it. So let's add it to the study. White played was White's Magnus and Sergey Tavik, And it isn't Sergei Karyakin, this is just Sergei, another Sergei. C1 exclam. See, the idea behind C1, Carlsen occupies the only open file. White is fractionally better as he controls the C file, and his bishop is a little stronger than the counterpart bishop of the opposite color. Rook takes d5, and then rook a4. There is the occupying of the 7th rank that could be played here. Rook a5 at this point, a4, and then bishop to says black's bishop goes to f5, and black would be just a little worse if he played this move. So this is actually a better move. Rook d7, and then g4, because Magnus has a majority on the king side, so he's trying to get it going. It's an interesting move because white gains space on the king side, so h6, trying to stop that. But you gotta always remember, never leave a they call it a hang pawn. Now, not like a hanging pawn, but a hang pawn, because if you allow white can actually play g5 and hook this pawn. I think it's called a hook pawn, if I'm not mistaken. I may be Ginger Grandmaster Simon Williams had a word for it. I may not be saying it right, but he talked about that you really don't want to do that. It's kind of like a sore spot in your position, because what will happen is that h6 will allow g5 and then a break to happen. And in some circles of play, you want to keep your pawn solid, and you want to wait till your opponent over expands a little bit, then try to lock it up. This allows white to potentially later on go for a break with like f4 and g5. There's also h5, and then you take, and bishop e2, trying to undermine the pawn. And black should be safe at this point, because even if that's played and he takes, you're still kind of a messy position, so it's about equal. h6, f3. This is to get the king involved, so the king can infiltrate maybe over, and maybe something like king f2, e1, king d3, something like that. Magnus slowly advances his pawns. King h7. Sergei, not Sergei Karyakin, but different Sergei, adopts a dangerous plan. He decides to just wait and rely on the strength of his fortification. He's thinking that after this, the author says that after f5, g takes f5, bishop takes f5, white's edge would be very small. Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better today. King f2 is an exclam move like what we talked about. Great. That's good to hear. King f2. This allows for white to go to 2 points if they want to go e1 or g3. It allows that type of flexibility. e7. That's not e. Sorry, that's ed7. e7 here to hold on to the pawn. Rook a3 exclam at this point. This attacks the bishop, kicks the bishop out, and the bishop has to either go to b5. Actually, that's really the only spot the bishop can go to is b5. Yeah, it's kind of stuck there. And then a to c3. Magnus's last move made sure that black has no active play because there's no rook from e5 over to a5, so it's going to be pretty difficult now for black. Sergey Tavinskyev to actually get any counterplay, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. No counterplay, here. So rook d8 and king g3. Now the king has decided to there's no point in shifting over to the queen side, so why not come to the side you're the strongest on and prepare for your breaks. Really nice move. Tremendous move. f6 here, pawn of 6, and then f4. Now starts the push. We still have to understand that we got to be careful with our bishop. It's only protected by a pawn. So if this pawn leaves the board via like doubling up and something like that, you potentially could, or something here, and I doubt it'd be hard to actually get rid of that pawn, but just always be on the lookout for where your piece is protected, and if this is the only thing that's protecting it, just be on guard when you push pawns in the endgame that you don't leave it hanging, because that'd be sad that you're doing so good and all of a sudden your piece is not protected even though you thought it was prior, because the pawn took, and then you lose the endgame. So calculation in the endgame is vital. It's all based on the principles that we talked about of Jeremy Silman. So f4, h5. Rook dd7. Just a waiting move could actually happen, and then rook c8, and this is to try to play something like rook f8, and then rook cc8, c1 to c8, and then try to do a back rank mate here after the pawn push. It's caused a lot of chaos. Loving it. Because then what would have to happen is you'd push, and then this bishop could take, and even more problems could arise in that line. So they're not out of the woods yet. Rook c8 is an interesting move. I'm going to give it an interesting mark. I like that move. Bishop d3 to try to keep control of g6. Bishop g4, a4, not g4, 5. a4. Trying to shut this down because black wants to get their counterplay. White would have some initiative. Sergey could have stuck to his original idea and waited. He could have actually played rook f7 here. It's not easy to make progress for white. I wonder how Magnus would have gone about trying to break the fortress down. But it never was played. What was played was g5 here. Very nice move. Very nice. White has more space. Black has control over the light squares. King g6. Rook b1 to go after this bishop. And rook d5 to protect the bishop. Rook c8. And so now Magnus, I like that move. It's an interesting move, because what you're saying to black is, I'm going to be playing against your bishop, I'm going to be playing against your back rank, I'm playing against everything. I'm not letting you have breathing room one bit. Bishop e8 to shut down all the eighth rank from the rook. B to c1, and then f5. And at this point, rook to b8 exclam is played, because now that black has solidified everything down, now it's going to be infiltration into the back rank. Doubling the rooks on the 8th keeps Sergei defending. So rook d6 to hold on to there. Bishop b5 could be played here. And then rook c8. And bishop and rook d6. Rook h8. And bishop to c4 exclam, and a4. And white has a slight edge here, not as powerful of one that Magnus had from this. Now c8 is problematic. D to e6. And then bishop to e5, just tightening up a little bit. Now the rooks really can't do anything. If this rook moves, then you could actually grab the bishop. If this rook moves, then you can grab the bishop. If this rook moves, you grab the bishop. And if it moves to any one of these points here, or one of the rooks will grab it. So white's totally locked down. It's all white's in total compression. I mean, black's in total compression, and black's running out of room. And so the king's the only really piece that can move. Everything is locked down. I guess the bishop could move. I guess the bishop could move. Bishop c6 if you wanted to do that. And then a3, trying to put him into Zugzwang. And d7, rook d7. If rook e8 here, this is a mistake, double question mark blunder. Because what you could actually do is grab the bishop here, and this is a puzzle rush idea. And if rook takes, then you grab there and you're a piece up. It's a puzzle rush idea, because it's you can grab one of the defenders of you can grab the defender, and it's all over at that point. And if they try this, they try taking here, you just take there, and now you're in check. And if he plays there, you just retreat your rook back, and you're up a whole piece, and there's nothing that black can do about it but resign. Rook h8 for white, and then bishop d5. White can press, but there is really no direct win at this point. Rook d8 is a brilliant move by Magnus, because it stops this because of the rook coming over and causing a mating idea, potential mating idea. This is a very sly move. He missed that this is difficult to analyze. King g6. King f2. Exclam. Now the only piece that's not in the fight is the rook. So now see the rook, one rook covers here, one rook covers here, one bishop covers there, and the king could actually now progress up the board, being protected. Very smart idea. A waiting move, in this case giving black the opportunity to make a mistake, which black did make a mistake. King f7, mistake. He could have tried playing bishop c6, b to c6. Let me see, what is it? B c8, right there. Bishop e8 is a mistake, but kind of a forced move. It's kind of one of those. That's why forced moves are a killer. And then e4 exclam. Bishop c6. Rook d6. Bishop d7. Rook c7. Rook takes d. Bishop takes d, and rook f7. e5. There's your passer. Bishop e6. Bishop e7. Now black may lose due to the trapped rook in the line black. Is to improve if on rather than this move here, if bishop b7 would avoid a rapid deterioration of his position. This gets an exclam. It would have stopped the deterioration of the position. But you can't win them all. e4, exclam. Oops. Sorry. After this, and king there. Sorry, e4, exclam. This is the main line. With the rook on d8, the king on f2, and this breakthrough is decisive. A decisive breakthrough. King g6. F takes. Bishop d6, and this wins because there's no way to get around the loss of material. Because if rook d7, you could play rook takes d7, check, bishop takes d7, and then rook f8 check. King comes up, and then you push the pawn, and then when the king moves, you win the rook. Kaboom. That was probably an 1800 tactic. Bishop d6, exclam, and again it's over. Now the rook defends the bishop. A bit here. Rook takes d. Bishop takes d. And then e5. And the protected pass pawn and the weakness on g7, it's just too much for black. Black's about to collapse under the weight of the position. Trying to exchange rooks doesn't help either. If rook e8, rook b2, b7, we don't have to trade. Bishop e6, rook takes a. So now we've won a pawn. Rook c8, king e3. Just get the king involved now. Rook c3, king d2, rook c4 to go after the pawn. Bishop f8. Now you're going after this pawn, and with check and checkmate to boot for that matter. This is mate. If if black were to take here, this would be checkmate. So black can't take at that point. Bishop f7 to actually block. This is the main line. I just wanted to show you the subline. And then e6, and now there's really no way to stop without the loss of material. No, rook, it's the only move though that kind of puts some threat. That's the only move that would put some threat for the opponent. Okay, so c6, and then rook c8, rook e8, or bishop e8, not rook e8, rook a8, bishop f7, rook takes a. So now Carlsen is a pawn up, and black can't resist for long. e8, and then a3. Bishop d5, king e3, b5, king d4, bishop g2. If bishop e6, oops, not e4, sorry. Bishop e6, king c5, and bishop c4, a4 at this point. And now you're undermining the pawn. Rook c8 check, and then rook c7, and this wins as well. Because after exchanges, how do you prevent the loss of this pawn? You can't. And now e6. Pretty, but not hard to find, is a exclam. Rook takes. rook e5, king h7, rotates g, check, king h8, rook e7, and Carlsen, black resigned here. He's threatening mate, so he has to move here, and this sets up. It's an interesting, sweet little move here. E6 to free the e5 pawn, e5 square for the bishop. So the rook would actually have to, the computer would have taken, and then you take here, and your game is toast anyways. And if he tries this, you can actually check. There's no way to you can actually queen check there. And you take, bishop takes. Come there, king takes, takes. And now he has to win this. You pick up the bishop. If the king comes here, you just come there, comes. And now it's resignable. So that was pretty fun to work out. And now we'll do the French defense. One second here. Are you still up to be moderators? Do you still want to be moderators to help if there's any? Oh yeah, and I have your. I think I have the thing. Let me see. Nope, that's not it. I saved it right here. See? You said you wanted me to go to the. There you go. There's it. Yeah, that's it right here. Okay. Hold on, I'll have to get that set up. Just 1 second. I have to. Let's see. This is the advanced variation. Yep. Oh, about, I think I can, not sure if how do I, um, let's see here. Boy, I'm not sure how to do the moderator. I've been trying to work on it. Hold on, give me a second, really quick. I'll, uh, I'll pull up a Blitz game for you to watch, and then I gotta check something really quick on my other computer to make sure that I'm doing it right. Click on there, and the three dots. No, that doesn't, I'm not sure. Let's see. Hold on, hold on. I think I know how to do it. I'll put this on thing for you to watch really quick. Chess TV. Okay, let me get a sip, and then I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Alright, there we go. Yep, we did both, yeah. Okay, now we can we'll finish this up. Yep. I had to figure out how to do it. There we go. Let's do our studies now. Now we can get back into it. And we got it fixed. Oops, I don't need to do this one. I have it there. Perfect. Oops, I gotta flip the board. So let's see what we got now. E4, E6, D4, D5. We're going down the advanced variation, C5, and C3. So we're going down the main line now. F. Oh, sweet. We're going down the D7. I really like going down the D7. Yep. Remember, I always think about this. With much power comes much responsibility. So we have to only ban people that are rude. So that's the whole thing. That's the chess cruncher way if they want to stay. And we have to also give them a chance too. You know what? You have to always give them an opportunity. If they may make one mistake, and then you know what? You can forgive that, which you give them 10 minutes. And if they come back and then do it again, then you can ban them because then they've had a warning. Yeah. And that's just you know what? Because we want to try to promote chess. That's the whole thing. But this bishop d7 is really cool. I prefer it over playing queen b6 because a3 gets played at this point, and then white gets counterplay, and I don't want to give white counterplay. This is more of a bishop d7 is more of a flexible move. It allows more flexibility. Oh wow, not a good person. Yikes. Man, these people, a lot of these accounts are starting to pop up. Oh, there's another line. Interesting. So if if they don't go a3 but play bishop d3, c takes d, c takes d. Yep, good job. That's great. You know what? You have to Yeah. Let's see. There. Takes, and then bishop d7. I think we went over one of these games before. Castles, and then knight takes d7. And this actually picks up a pawn here. It kind of transposes into a game, and there's no bishop b5 anymore. And I've actually had this played, which bishop e3 can actually be played. Grandmaster Simon Williams said that what you could do is either take this or kind of retreat over and retreat out. I think I would take it. They might play rook e1, and then I'd play, in my opinion, bishop queen either maybe queen d7. Okay. Now you could ban him if you want. Yeah. Cause yeah. This yeah. Okay, I gotta. This person is not being nice, so yeah, I just ban. I had to do that. Ah. I banned him for you. Man, they just keep creating more accounts. But we gotta stay focused on chess. We gotta remember that. Chess, focus. Okay. Don't. This is what the author says. Warning. Don't fall for knight takes d4 if you don't have your bishop. If you don't have your bishop on d7, there's a trick that could happen here. If they do this, don't fall for this move here. This is the biggest trick in the book, because you lose a queen at that point. After blocks here, bishop takes, king takes, and then your queen's gone. That's why you can actually play after this. You can, oops, I know, and then here, and then if castles, then you can win the pawn now. But if you didn't have the bishop on d7, yeah. There we go. So this is what was actually played in the game, and then bishop d3, which actually is, I believe Ginger Grandmaster Simon Williams says this is a gambit line, because you actually this gives up a pawn, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think this does, because after pawn takes, and then bishop, and then queen b6. This is called the Mueller-Berry Gambit, where white actually offers the d4 pawn up and for developmental lead. In my opinion, with the help of the computer, the author says this gambit is outright unsound now, since white's labor is pretty hard now to get compensation for the loss of the d4 pawn. So after this, you castle, and a move made with the, he says, psychological of transforming. Yeah, I got it. Transforming the position into a minor piece endgame, where all the pieces start coming off the board, and it's if it's just so that this is to kind of get down to a minor piece in game. Even if you're down a pawn, you can sometimes hold. So okay. Now the trouble is if white attempts to hang on with let's see here. Hold on. Let me make sure I got this. Knight takes here. Okay. Hold on. So if bishop, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, bishop c. Okay, I got it. Instead of castles, bishop c2, which is dubious, and then knight b4, which is an exclam. So I gotta put exclam there. That's dubious move because so here, okay. And if they try to hold on with b3, that's a mistake now. And queen a6. There's no castling anymore for white. White's stuck in the center, and it's all over now. It's all over. So he says, in his opinion, at this point, chop the pawn off the board as quick as you can. So he says, just take the pawn, say to your opponent, prove it. And basically, by taking this, I think it was Victor Krochnoi who, if a pawn was given to him, Victor would actually take it and hold on for dear life on the chessboard and defend almost the rest of the game. He'd make the opponent have to prove that the gambited pawn was actually worth basically the attack. And he's won lots of games via that. So I figure if that happens, then we should be okay with using this type of a gambit as well. If white gives us a pawn, more than merrier, take it. Our starting position of the gambit: the player intends to push the opposition, offering a second pawn to increase his developmental lead. While you can actually play b5, trying to get into c7 and win a rook idea. a6 is a playable line because you don't really have to gambit the pawn. I mean, you don't have to grab the pawn. Our secret to overcoming the Mueller gambit is to accept the first pawn and deny the second pawn. It's dangerous to actually grab this pawn. You could, in theory, grab it and then say to your opponent, "Are you serious? You just gave me 2 pawns. I am now 2 whole pawns up." And white would say, "Yes, I'm serious. Now I have maximum development. I have my king castled. I have almost all of my pieces developed. I'm 2 moves away from full development. You're still in the opening. You haven't developed your bishop on f8, knight on g8, and you haven't even castled. Congratulations on those 2 pawns. I'm gonna be able to sacrifice material and come crashing through with a tremendous attack." So if you're an attacker and you love gambits, I'd probably say if your opponent falls for this and they go and they grab the pawn rather than going a6, I'm sure there's some sort of an attack that you can do. So at certain levels you can actually take the pawns, but when you get into like the 2000 and above, the majority of your opponents will have already put it into a computer and have the engine, and I've looked at all the gambit continuations, how to get basically weave around the maze of all the gambits you're setting up, and they'll have an idea based around that. So I prefer solid. I actually prefer solid openings, and I preferred going into tactical games. I like tactical games. But if my opponent gives me a pawn, and it's a safe pawn, I'm more than happy to take it from my opponent. If I see it's a silly take and it's going to cost me the game, I'm not going to grab that pawn. But so a6. Remember a6. Don't grab this because you're going to get totally trounced in play, because your opponent has now a pin on the e pawn. If you try to retreat back, the knight can come in. It's nothing but pain and more pain, and you don't want to do that. I don't. Well, if my opponent was under 2,000, maybe. But if my opponent was above 2,000, probably not. I would probably go a6. I probably would go a6 and just be happy with one pawn, and basically again say to my opponent, prove it. Because this pawn on e5 is actually, until we can get our pieces developed after this move, even if rook e1 here, the pawn block is blocking, and the knight can't take because there's no pin anymore. His own pawn is blocking his attack, so it's not as strong. But if we gambit in, if we grab the pawn, then now when the queen moves, now there's a pin on the e pawn. But beforehand, there is no pin if the rook goes to e1. See, subtle changes in the chess openings can really throw your position into either chaos or stability. You don't want a chaotic position. And a6 is more of a matured player's move. I'm saying that, you know what, I'm restraining from taking more material. There's no real need to do that. I understand I have to get, I have to get my position developed, and then after I get my position developed, I'm good to go. But so you just have to be, your position can get messed up if you make a mistake. So that teaches us to be patient and look for the correct moves. That's what I always think about. Look for the correct moves. So queen d e2 was played here. This defends the e5 pawn. Also now the bishop can come to e3, connect the rooks, and welcome to the middle game, white. Because the principle of middle games is when the two rooks are connecting to each other. I'll just make a move for black. Let's just say e7. If this was played, then the queen moves here. We'll just say this. Now that these two rooks are connected, white is in the middle game, while black is still lagging behind in the opening. You can kind of tell where your opponent is by, is their position castled? Do they have their rooks connected, or are their pieces developed? And you can kind of see where the armies are and tell who has an advantage by principles. Ooh, so knight e7 was played. Cool. The idea is to play knight to c6, and that pressurizes c6, knight c6. And knight, no, you went, we are all good. Okay. King h1. This gets out of the pin. This is I've seen this move have been played by some of the grandmasters. What it does is it gets out of a pin and allows f4 to be played, which now your pawn is protected by a pawn instead of the queen. So this frees up your queen. So unpinning and preparing f4 is always a good idea, he says. King d1 is an idea as well. This does set up for an attack. It threatens bishop takes at a6. So now knight to c6. Exclaim. This is like you're thinking, what? You're gambiting a pawn? No, 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 no. We're not gambiting a pawn. We're actually going to win a pawn. We get our pawn, we destroy the center now, because our knight now is protecting, is attacking e5, so after we lose a side pawn, we gain a center pawn. And a center pawn in the middle game is much better than in the end game. If we were in the end game, I kind of would be a little concerned if we lost a side pawn, because our opponent potentially would have a outside pass pawn. But now that we're in the middle game, we're status quo, operation go. So bishop takes b7 to get the pawn back, and then queen takes e2, knight takes e2 of course, and then rook b8. We have a massive pawn chain on the king side. We have one pawn island, and our opponent has two. So white has a weakness in the endgame. We can actually neutralize these two pawns with a bishop and a king, while our huge pawn chain on the king side, even kind of coming over into the queen side, would totally overwhelm these three pawns in an endgame. So you have to always think, when you are looking at a middle game position, what is your goal for your end game? Because when you enter the middle game, now your whole plan shifts to an end game. And if your opponent makes a mistake or a blunder, and you're able to finish it sooner, more power to you. But if they take it to an end game, what type of end game do you want to play for? That's why that's why we do our end game studies, because the majority of the games go towards an end game at certain levels. Okay, dokie. Alright. Let's see how we're doing here. Sweet. Not very many lines that we have to go down. There's not much theory to bishop to d7, so in this advanced variation you can actually play bishop d7 without having to go down tons of theory. It's really nice. That's why I like playing it. You can be more tactical at that point. Okay, dokie. Let's see here. Okay, knight takes, rook there. Okay, bishop takes. Hold on. Bishop takes here. I have to finish this off, then bishop takes. So now we have the two bishops. And clear advantage for black, who owns the bishop pair and a superior center, so we've already talked about that. So we can actually move on now into more of the play. Knight to c6. This is to take scope on e5. f4 now, because the king's out of the pin. Now the pawn is protected. Is protecting its friend, Edward. Knight b4 though. Now this is a tremendous move here. this is an exclam. This is really a good move because what you're trying to do is get rid of one of the bishops, and if you can do that, you then have the bishop pair, which would be a tremendous advantage for us. It would be a slight, to the computer, probably a slight advantage, but to a human, 2 thumbs up for that. Because this is white's best bishop, if we can neutralize that. Bishop B, B1. And in this position, there is time and white's precious resources. He seems to adequately he doesn't have adequate initiative anymore. Black's starting to unwind the position and get, yeah. So potentially rook d1 could be played here, like what we talked about. Knight takes, then the rook would take, and then bishop d6, and not d. Oh, I'm sorry, bishop b6, not e6. Bishop b6. Not bishop, queen b6, and yeah. Some reason I was thinking bishop for some reason. I think I was talking a lot about bishops. Got the bishop thinking on the mind. So rook c, bishop c5, bishop e3. So now it takes, and so now we have an imbalance here with our light square bishop will become active. Hooray! Even though it's a bad bishop, we learned from Jeremy Silman's Reassess Your Chess 4th edition that there's bad active pieces. Yes, the pawns are on light squares, but the bishop can get outside and then become active, and that does happen. So now we play queen c4, and if we can trade off queens, we can consolidate our advantage. And so that's why this gets an exclam. You have to know. I believe there was a book that Joel Benjamin wrote. It was called Liquidation on the Chessboard, and you have to know. Grandmasters know exactly when to liquidate down, when it is positionally better for them. And so bishop d1, bishop queen d1, because we don't want to trade. If we trade, it only helps black. White is saying to themselves, we're not going to do that. There is a there's queen f3, but then you get d4 exclam, and now this pawn ends up becoming a problem. Now we have bishop c6, and we have a pawn that's just coming up the board, and it's not fun for white. So white just settles for somewhat going passive, and it's kind of funny almost, if it wasn't sad, that how these pieces are almost all on the back rank. There's only one piece that's active, and it's the knight. How it was interesting how white was so active to begin with, then with just a couple small dubious moves, black was able to neutralize the initiative and then take the initiative. It's incredible how that happens. d4 gets played here, exclam. So this gets an exclam too, and he gives a reason why d4 is good. D4 pawn is like a choke point. Andrew Martin called it a bone in the throat, which means a choke point. It's really good for black, because now the bishop can't really come out, and the only move the dark square bishop would go to is d4, which would block the queen. Now this knight, the only active piece, has to retreat, so now white's all passive. One pawn did that. Knight e4. I guess he has to go pure activity at this point. Yeah. So d3. Now this knight is hanging, so not a fun experience when that happens. Knight c3. Knight d6 could be played here. Bishop takes, e takes, and now rook to c8. And in theory, we're getting close to knight to knight c2, and this is going to be nothing but unfun for white if we can get that in. Bishop d2 was played to try to hamper the knight. Knight goes into c2 like what we talked about. It's happy as a clam. Bishop takes c2, and queen to let's see, what did I miss here? Oh, d takes, and then queen c1, and then bishop c6. And the idea is to try to now go for a mating idea on g2. Since we've neutralized the majority of white's pieces, it's time to go for a KO, and we haven't even castled. This is an amazing turn of events, as I like to say. Bishop c6. Now white's king's feeling the heat with the sniper putting the scope up right on the king. That's uncomfortable. Bishop b c9 there. C bishop e3. And then rook d8. This is so that if we were to somehow get our knight, maybe moving, maybe knight here to attack, then we can bring a rook up, bishop up, and it's just like nothing but pain and more pain. It's not fun. So far, the gambit only fails to mark white's remains still a pawn down. 2, black owns the initiative. We just talked about that. And 3, the d pawn ties all of white's pieces down. So this is a huge choke point. In conclusion, the author says white is busted, and I am in full agreement with the author on this, that white is totally out of resources. Knight d5, because if we can win a bishop, even if the bishop's bad, we still have a bishop advantage, and this white light square bishop's out of play. So not one good thing is if the bishop comes here, we could play knight takes, then we come back and grab it. It's a puzzle rush tactic. So if you were thinking of bishop here, bishop a2, we take, the bishop takes, then we have a puzzle rush move right there. Now we're up at 2 pieces, 2 minor pieces. So that's kind of a sweet tactic right there. You gotta love it for sure. Let's see here. A, knight takes. Let's see, queen takes d. And then queen d2 to try to stop this pawn from advancing any further up the board. Bishop c5, bishop c5, and bishop takes, queen takes, and then bishop a2. Only active square for the bishop. if the bishop had taken on d3, which is walking right into a pin, this is horrible. You don't want to do that. No, you don't. Bishop e4, and you can say goodbye, because wham, there it goes. It's all over at that point. Hold on, a2, castles. Wait a second, what did I miss something here? Hold on, oops, hold on, where did I? Ah, got it. c5 needs to be promoted. C takes. Hold on, did I? Oh, wait a second. I think I. Hold on, did I make a mistake? Let me see. Oops, I gotta promote this. Takes there. Okay, got it. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good. Okay, I had the wrong promotion spot. Now black castles, and now there's no hope whatsoever for white. It's whatever hope they had when castle happened. It's over. Ace to c1. Queen b6. And then b4, pawn b4. Bishop e2, a4. This is, we want to somehow keep an eye on this push that white has coming. We want to keep an eye on it. And then it also keeps an eye on pushing there too. So c to e4 or e1, rook d4, rook e3, rook to c8. And now what we're doing is we're threatening to actually fork the bishop and the queen. Bishop e1 is forced, and queen c6. And if we could, we could try queen c3, queen takes, rook takes, and then now this pawn could actually move, can flow, can get moving. Rook g3, and then g6. This stops this forever. This stops this, and everything's good. h3. If bishop takes d3, which is a double question mark because you're walking into a pin again. Bishop takes d3, rook takes d3, rook takes, queen takes. Oops, I don't think we would see it. Did they just say that white took? Queen c4. Because we're threatening now mate in 1 using a pin. Gotta love that. This gets an exclam. You have to love that. Rook d1. Rook takes, queen takes, rook takes, and then c1. Forces mate on the next move. So that's just brilliant. Queen c3. And we talked about if we can get this pawn, if we can get d3 mobilized to go to d2, black's winning. So this exchange is a wonderful idea. Queen to e3, and then there goes d4. I mean d2. Exclam. We have accomplished our goal, and we're just winning, all together winning. Rook f2, Oops, not e2. Rook f2. Hold on, did I do something wrong? I think I moved. Let me see. Queen c3, e3, d2. If takes here, takes, rook takes, queen, rook takes, king up. Okay, we actually win material on that line. Okay, that's why they had to play there. That makes sense. And so bishop takes e4 is one. Queen takes, rook takes, and then rook c1, and the game is basically over. So at this point here, there's a tactic alert for black. Black has a tactic alert. Black to move exclam. Black to move exclam. Tactic alert. So what would black move here? This is a tactic alert. Do you have an idea? There you go. You got it. Kaboom. That's the exclam move. Queen takes, and then rook to c1 exclam. And it's all over. I think that if you queened, I think it doesn't give you as much initiative. I think you're still okay, because I think you still win. So I think it's okay too. But black doesn't want to give up any pieces that they don't have to. I'm kind of seeing that what would happen is the king would have to move to, let's just give the king a move. We're going to put a square here. This is the move so that we have it. Oh, I got it. I know what I'll do. I'll put it this, and then I'll put black is better. There we go. Well, actually, not just better. Black is winning. Black's winning. If the king moved to g1, rook takes, king takes, and then queen, and now you're up a whole rook. You're up an entire rook here. Okay. And he's saying, in summary, I think this, yeah, let me see something. In summary, he's saying our secret to overcoming the gambit is to accept the first pawn and then deny the second gambit. He says this is actually, he was really happy about this because the whole idea is to play a6 rather than taking, because otherwise you allow your opponent to get equality at that point, and maybe even a little bit more than we don't want them to have. Alright, it's puzzle time. Puzzle time. Yep. We'll do 6 puzzles. Board editor. Okay, I'll get it set up and then we'll wait. For just a second. Oops, I almost forgot the queen. That would have been helpful. There's a lot of pieces spread all throughout the board here, so just want to make sure I have them right. Yep. There we go. Oh, yeah, we did. But I wanted to do it anyways so we can keep in sequence. Bishop f4 takes, and then we took here and we get mate. Alright, so now we'll yep, you got it. Let's do the pawns because that's faster. If I get the pawns set up, then it's a lot easier for markers. Wow, there's actually 2 queens on the board here. This is pretty stellar. Ready, get set. Oops. Hold on, where did I? Paste, there we go. It's queen bf4 is mate because there's 2 queens. Oh, wait a second. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, that's... Let's see here. If takes, queen takes. There's also one more mate. Do you see the mate? There's one more mate. Actually, there's a lot more mates. Any other move that black plays, besides, let's say, any queen moves, piece moves, pawn moves, anything, we'll just play a pawn move. There's queen h7 mate. Takes h7 mate. So, two more. Yep, you got it. There we go. Yeah, this one's cool. Maybe later, but we're just finishing up our lesson. Huh. Nice job there. That's mate. Make sure I have this right. Oops. Alrighty. This is the last one. Yep, there you go. Okay, do you have any questions? On what we studied today? Alright. I wanted to thank y'all for logging on, and thank you moderators for um, handling a lot of the trolls and bots today. And so, great job for sticking with the Chess Cruncher motto of giving them one opportunity. Then, sad thing is, when they step over the line, they have to be removed because it distracts from the Chess Cruncher team learning principle. And the Lord even talked about that. That's why what I usually talk about is what you think about is important, and a lot of that, if you let that in, would affect your studies. And so that's why the Lord said to always keep your mind on the task at hand that the Lord Jesus has for you, and to never forget that you know what, why you do what you do. And that's why the Chess Cruncher community is a team. We work together as a team to learn, improve, and make the chess community even better. That's the whole point. And you know what? You have to remember that it's not how you start, because we've noticed in the Gambit that White had a tremendous lead in their development in the French defense with that one Gambit. But in the end, Black was the one who came out ahead because of proper play. It all goes back to two kings of Israel. One was Saul. Saul's beginning was great. He had a good beginning, but his latter part was bad. And David's beginning was, as if we would look at it from chess terms, was very small, building up, but his latter part was even greater than Saul's. And so that's what we could take away from it, that you know what, you may start out at a lower rating if you're going to do like FIDE or USCF, but don't give up. It's not where you start, it's where you finish that matters. Okay, and remember what the Chess Cruncher motto is. We hang up our coats, we hang up our hats, we sit down and study when most won't. A Chess Cruncher does. A Team Chess Cruncher does. And that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says for Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. And Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And we'll keep pushing forward. So congratulations for hanging in there, listening, improving, absorbing the information, and getting better, and never giving in, but getting up and keep pushing forward. And what did Hannibal Smith say? Forcing moves are the basis behind what his plans were. He wanted to know what his opponents were going to do before they did them, and he wanted to be the one to push that idea. And if we can do that, then you will either have two results, a win or a draw. And if you lose, that's part of chess. Take it home, learn from it, and improve. Okay, hoorah, be blessed. 2 thumbs up, great job. Thank you, moderators, and have a great rest of the night. And always remember, honor the Lord Jesus. Bye-bye, be blessed.